So I am going to officially call this to order. We have quorum. So it is 6:15 and the regular scheduled meeting of May 4th, insert Star Wars joke here, is officially called to order. And welcome to our task force members and to our new guests and supporters. As I was saying, when I initially logged in, we're going to do things a little bit differently in the sense of you will be on mute. And if you could please raise your hand by showing there's an icon on the bottom where you can have a reaction, or you can chat in the group chat and mention that you have a question. As per Robert's rules, we will go first to the task force members, the official committee members, and then we'll turn it over to the community. So with that, our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the April 22nd meeting. And by a show of a hand, does someone want to make a motion to approve the minutes? And forgive me if I don't see. Well, Steve Bogan with a first, with a motion. Is there a second to that motion? Karen Lynch with the second. Any discussion from members of the task force by show of hands? Bev, do you have a question, or are you just saying that you approve them?
I'm sorry, I'm saying I approve them. I apologize.
Okay, perfect. So now by show of hands with all the task force members, with the icon, please, do I have all in favor of the minutes? Doug, Karen, Bev, Gina. I don't see, and I'm just having trouble scrolling through the screen. Hopefully I saw Sandra come in. Is there any, thank you, Sandra, I see that. Jason, thank you. And I'm sorry, this is a little bit clumsy as we make our way through the security layer here, but we'll get there. So, and I'm just going to give Innie a moment to weigh in. We just did the approval of the minutes. Innie, do you have any comments on the minutes? I just want to try to get it for the record.
No, they're approved by me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll back to, so the first item on the agenda is to go over the call of last time, April 22nd, and to recap and to hear and consider next steps. I'll open up to the task force members first. Bev, your hand is still raised, so if you don't want it to be, put that down. Otherwise, if you're looking to be called on, you can keep it up. I'll call on you, Bev, and I'm going to ask our tech support on the back end if you could please unmute Bev. And then please identify yourself when you're speaking. So Bev, did you?
No, no, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my, I'm trying to get it off.
Okay, the reaction. Okay.
Okay, yes,
so,
I got it off.
Well, since it is unmuted, is there anyone do you, Bev, have a comment? What our first item is to go over the events of the last call, April 22nd, and to respond and have next steps.
I'm sorry, if you're hearing background noise, it's because I'm at my daughter's track meet and it's obviously taking longer than it's supposed to as usual. So I may be a little distracted.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you then on mute. And then we're going to turn it over. Does anyone, is there a comment from a member of the task force? Gina, do you want to talk about, or are you not yet, or?
Yeah, so first of all, how's everyone doing? It's been quite a while since we've seen each other. It feels like a million years. I'm glad to see everyone back here again tonight. One, appreciate everybody's dedication as always. And just as always, really happy for all the work that you've all done and happy that you would come back. So I just want to kind of fill you in on what's been going on our end since then. You all know that I come to this from a lot of different ways, but I am primarily a school psychologist is how I view the world and how I think about people and what they need. And so Nancy and I have kind of been working behind the scenes with the town because we really felt like there was a lot that we as a group, I think, still need to unpack. I've heard from, lots of people and lots of you about, that was not a fun experience for any of us. And I think, some of us were traumatized by it more than others. Some of us felt harmed by it. Some of us didn't feel anything. But I think, one thing that was really important to me is no matter what, this group has always coalesced as a group of people who have the same goals and who come together with the goal of trying to do good and trying to really help, move things forward. And so to that end, I just want to make sure that we all feel that we can still do that we still feel whole, that we still feel like we haven't, that what happened did not take anything away from who we are, the work we want to do, and the goals we were going to go forward with. So to that end, we've reached out to Dr. Stephanie Morrissey at Fairfield U, and she is in the counseling department there. And so she's just working with us to put together just a space for us to come together, for anybody who was on the call who's interested, just for us to come together and kind of unpack what we've been feeling, how we feel about the experience, how we feel about going forward. But at the end of the day, this work is about human beings relating to other human beings. And what happened to us was not, the way human beings like to be treated. And so, that's really, I think, really important to us, that we, that we find our center again. So we've arranged, there have been some logistical considerations because we are a board, but I think they're mostly ironed out, right, Nancy? So it won't be part of this meeting because it's more of, it's a counseling session more than anything. So it's actually going to be just for the people who are on the call. But we'll talk about, I guess, Nancy, do you have any more information? Then you're muted.
Okay, and again, I'm going to show best practice here. I'm Nancy Lefkowitz, just identifying ourselves. It is up on my screen, but for those listening, I think it's important that we identify ourselves because this is also an audio file that's published. And I just want to follow up and say we have what happened to us as a group. The first select woman was right away, she responded and was working, giving the police, the full, making sure that they were going to investigate to its fullest extent. We did all of you on the task force receive that update in terms of the police chief? If anyone didn't see it, either chat or message me privately, but both the first select woman and the police chief have come out unequivocally and stated, and as recently as the Board of Selectmen meeting that we had just at 3:00 today, unequivocally, this behavior is not tolerated, that all people in Fairfield should feel this was just an egregious outrage, all the things that the chief expressed in the update. And so I hope that you're all feeling at least supported, at least that, again, the police were so quick to act and to investigate. And because we keep these meetings open, there is, we, unfortunately, the nature of the times, we do run a risk, and we talk to the tech team in the town about, should we switch to WebEx? Would it make a difference? And the fact is, we've always been pretty steadfast in our commitment to make sure that these meetings are open and that we do have a free flow and exchange of ideas. And I think that was evidenced by the way Gina and Bev responded to the perpetrator of that violence on the call in saying, okay, you've come here, speak your mind. And we want to continue that free exchange of ideas. And in that space and in that vein, this is just, unfortunately, there really isn't technology to protect that. So we've decided to stick with the Zoom format because it works for everybody, and just hope that, there are some supports that we've put in place on the back end, as we alluded to, making sure that people do identify themselves. We're not going to be letting people in. Part of the issue is that we let that perpetrator in and they were waiting around, and then took the moment when my screen share was on, as we had shared it when Karen was just, remember, it just came on the heels of Karen sharing a document. So they don't think that that person is a Fairfield resident or someone who lives in Connecticut, but it happened to us in service to the town. It happened to Fairfield residents. So to just echo what Gina was saying, if anyone wants to take advantage, if we think as a group it might be beneficial as a group to have a guided conversation. There are issues with FOIA that we're working around, but we want to make sure that the supports are in place, and that's first and foremost, before the FOIA issue and the Roberts Rules issue. In terms of, it's not a meeting, it really would be a counseling session. And thank you, Gina, for putting that in place. Does anyone on the task force want to weigh in on what we've said so far? Steve, please go ahead, and on the tech side, if you could unmute Steve. And once you're, okay, great.
Hi, this is Steve Bogan. Yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate what you said about, I thought the police did a real good job of following up. They did the best they could and informing us accordingly, and I appreciate that. And as well as Brenda, and maybe they gave us a lot of information. It was pretty technical, but I appreciate it. Follow up.
Tamisha?
Yeah, I
If
just
you could identify yourself, please.
Hi, Tamisha Powell from the task force. I just wanted to just bring it up again. Do we really want to keep this forum open to the public? Seeing that, we were, attacked. And do we really need public buy-in to do the work that we're doing right now? And I think that's something that we should reconsider and just not have it a public platform anymore. Just for, the work that's hand, and also for everyone's safety. I don't know. I'm opening it up for discussion.
Okay.
Does anyone else feel that way? Because I know, on the onslaught, we did, there were some of us on the task force that weren't comfortable with opening it up to the public. So I think, with what has transpired, it's a good opportunity for us to revisit that discussion again. And if everyone, get buy-in on how they're feeling about that, or if.
I will just respond, and thank you, Tamisha, for bringing that up, because I think it's something, that we should discuss. I will say that when this was conceived, what was told to me is that this was by the first select woman back in June, is that we should be open to public dialogue, and that we should welcome in all points of view, and that we should be making sure that we are accessible to, sorry, that is the last remaining human with a landline, I think. And this is Nancy Lefkowitz, sorry, I wanted to identify myself. So I think we would have to revisit that at the administrative level, but certainly I think that it's worth talking about amongst the group. First to the task force, I would bring it to you. Does anyone have anything they want to add to what Tamisha's just said? And as a reminder, that would mean that a lot of the members, a lot of the people who've been doing a lot of the work consistently alongside of us as what we're calling ad hoc members would therefore then not be able to participate. So that's just something to think about. Anyone, Gina?
So this is Eniko Dingra. Nancy, I echo what you have just said. This must be open, and the public must be a part of it, regardless of what we what comes to us. It's critical that we stay open. It's a responsibility which each one of us took on. And I think in the very beginning, we were all aware that this was not going to be a walk in the park. And it was going to be difficult. And I will say this again, and I've said this before, it's only begun. It's just begun. So we need to be extremely well prepared that when this report comes out, each one of us will be attacked personally. Our integrity will be attacked. How dare we be on this commission? What right do we have? What our credentials are? It's part of the process. So this is actually training ground for that. So I would like you to consider and look at it in this way. If we do not invite the public, I think we face a greater risk of this not being valued, the work that we have done. And it's important to have everyone, whether it's not the question of buy-in, it's actually the question of our integrity and the strength of the task force. So I feel very strongly that it must continue to stay open, and for all of us to strengthen ourselves for what is coming is going to be a lot worse.
And Innie, I think you had said it well, and thank you for that. That the issue being that if there anyone who questioned the need for this work, I think you simply said, there it is. And I think what the end result for me, besides the incredible strength that was on display by so many of the task force members, and it was a really, I mean, unpleasant is an understatement, but the resolve. And as Gina said, it is so good to see everybody back here this time and in numbers. And thank you for all the guests that have joined us. I would say that for me, the takeaway is what that perpetrator showed for me, is that we now have a mandate more than ever to help explain where, or not explain, but to the work has become more imperative. And it's just a real reminder of why we're doing what we're doing, at least for me. Gina, I'd seen your hand up. Is there anyone else that wanted to make a comment? Gina, you're up.
Yeah, you know, I want to just acknowledge, I think, you know, Tamisha, I really am hearing what you're saying and understanding where you're coming from, because it does feel, you know, very exposing to kind of put yourself out there to do what you think is right. I think at the same time, you know, I feel pretty strongly that I don't just represent myself, that I represent, you know, whoever decides that they want us to do this work. And I think the feedback that I get from people who come into the call, people who pop in from week to week, is that they're really interested in listening to the conversations, and they're really interested in, you know, that they've learned a lot from different speakers that we've had, and that, you know, part of being able to observe the work, on the one hand, I think, you know, helps people to understand what we're doing, because I think we have these sort of competing definitions of what we do. And I think the only way for us to actually, you know, to show what we do is to let people see it. I don't think that there's nothing that we're doing that I think, you know, we want to hide. And I'm always open to people's, you know, differing opinions. And if there's something they don't understand, I mean, what happened last time was not that. It wasn't, you know, someone challenging thought. It was someone challenging existence, which, you know, none of us need to tolerate at all. I don't think that any of us are in a space where we should be expected to tolerate someone challenging your very right to exist or live where you live. But at the same time, you know, like, I think back to the meeting that we had when, you know, Linasia came and she talked about the work that they did, and that this was a platform for her, and not just for her to come and speak to us, but for her to speak to the community about the work that all of those amazing students had spent months doing. And, you know, it was that's important. And I think that's an important piece of what we're supposed to be doing is, sort of elevating this other work. And so while I definitely do not enjoy that, it puts us at risk, I don't enjoy that at all. I actually dislike that tremendously. By the same token, I have felt tremendously proud of things that I've heard you all say, things that I've heard other people say about things that you've said. That part I think is important, and we have a job in that way as well. So I would continue to want to keep the meetings open, to continue to give people the opportunity to come, because as many, and I also just have like a pathological need to never let the haters get me down. So I don't want to change, I don't want to take away the good work for the people who are benefiting and let people who aren't interested win. If they don't want to hear what we do, just don't come. So that's where I am.
Gina, thank you. And I want to also reiterate in terms of our agenda items, this really kind of is the meat of what we're going to be talking about today, and kind of anything tangential from it, recognizing that some people may want to leave at 7 if they're going to go support the Weston group. There was some talk about that. But, and as far as the blueprint, it hasn't advanced yet, but we need to talk about that. So I just want to bring that up to say that this discussion and all that's tangential from it, and Tamisha bringing up this really good point, this is the meat of what we're doing today. So I wanted to just reiterate that. Does anyone have a comment? Annie, did you raise your hand again?
I did. This is Annie Cordingra. Nancy, is there any update on the email that was sent to a few of us? Because to me, that was quite something. Because
I believe I'm seeing the name of actually the gentleman that sent it. So if I don't know if that community member wants to speak up, I'm not going to share it here unless he chooses to do so. But I do see that there is an opportunity, so I'll just put that out there.
I guess I'm unmuted. Annie, are you finished with your thought? Because
and Steve, just identify yourself if you
this
could.
is Steve again, Steve Bogan. Annie, did you finish what you were going to say? Because
yes, Steve, I did. I just
wanted, I cut you off because I wanted to make sure you understood that we have an opportunity here to talk about that actually with the direct source. I'm being cagey on purpose because unless that individual chooses to speak up.
well, this is Steve, so I'm going to finish what I was going to say if any was done. Yeah, I'm incredibly offended by that email. I'm happy that Don Lamberti is here to speak for himself about that email, and I hope, and I open the door right now to go ahead and speak about it and let us know where you're coming from and what the purpose was. I'd rather have you show your face, but and you can go ahead and not show your face, but what was that all about? Can you unmute, Tech, can you unmute Don Lamberti, please?
I've put in the request as I think the tech support has done so. All right. Is there anyone else that wants to follow up with what Steve just said? You know, we can't make somebody speak out. The hope is that there is a free exchange of ideas here so that we can get to a place of better understanding and learn from one another. I think you have a real receptive audience willing to have that conversation. Does anyone else have something that they want to add? Karen? We're gonna, Don Hyman, I see your hand raised, and then we'll turn to the task force members first. So Karen, and then we'll open it up.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, a few things. One of them was a question and one of them is a comment. So the question number one is, still hearing about Tamisha and what she was thinking and feeling. Nancy, is there any wiggle room for us to have an occasional non-public meeting, or is it all or nothing? That was my question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We absolutely can go into private executive session.
Okay.
Where we should talk to the town attorney about what those instances could be, and then we can figure that out if there are issues. As I said, the work now is a lot of the drafting work that's happening behind the scenes. We have this opportunity, which is, again, been a little more free form than previous meetings in the sense of looser on the agenda because of what happened the last time. And really, we've all narrowed in and targeted in on the deliverable, the blueprint.
Yeah.
So in some ways, if people want to log in, this task force, we came to a place where we were really just making recommendations. And so we kind of have moved away from some of that visionary executing on things now, rather than being able to put together a plan to recommend for later. So how relevant it is for moving forward, because it's so technical in what we're doing in the next steps. But sure, there definitely is warranted where we could do private executive session. But again, I go back to this idea that there has been a core team of participants who've been outside of the official.
Yeah, and that was the other part of what my comment would be. So my wish would be, can we perhaps have an executive session with the members of the task force, because we do have a lot to unpack. And I think we can do some of that in executive session, and I think that might be prudent. I also think that I would never want to be in a situation where Kathy can't be here and Ryan can't be here and Molly can't be here. I mean, the people that are here.
Jamie, Dan, Andrew, absolutely.
Absolutely. All of these people.
Becky,
and for those of you who
Emma.
are joining us today, Vanessa and Emma, is it Emma? And Katrina, I think there's just a lot of people that are so valuable and such great resources for us, and also lift us up in the hard work that we're doing. I imagine that this work would be much lonelier if we didn't have so much community support, and I wouldn't want that for any of us. So that's where I weigh in there. And then the only other thing, because I was going to say that before, Steve had brought up the letter that we all received that Innie mentioned, and I think that Steve is also very aware of comments in the patch. I think that there are going to be indicators out there for public consumption and private consumption that we are hitting nerves with people, that we're making people uncomfortable, that people are afraid of the changes that might come of the work that we're doing because they don't know what it will mean for them. And I think that with all of that good work that we're doing, we're ruffling feathers, and that will probably continue to increase. So kind of to Innie's point. So I think that, if Don wanted to share, great. If he doesn't want to share and he's just here to listen, that's okay too. We took it in. We don't really have to, I don't believe that we have anything that we have to do with it other than to share our discontent, and to say, hey, we're here to listen. And if you want to hear our opinion, we can share it, but we don't need to engage if it's not a dialogue.
Okay, thank you. And I see, Doug, your hand, and Don, I'm not ignoring you, but just by process, we do have to go to the task force official members first. So Doug, go ahead. Oh, we're going to ask to unmute you, Mr. Behind the Scenes Technology Man.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just appreciate what Karen just said, and trying to sort of reconcile what Tamisha was pointing to too, like there's balancing safety and confidentiality and privacy with the public role. But my big take home from what happened, and I know there's a lot more to it than just this, but my big take home is that we are touching a nerve. And even if we are doing just this sort of administrative piece of delivering a set of recommendations that don't really quite have teeth yet, we're clearly stirring conversation and reactions. And I think in the long run, that's a good thing. It's just as Innie said earlier, it's painful. And we're probably going to get more stuff coming at us, but I was ultimately so inspired by the leadership in the call or last meeting from the co-chairs, from the rest of our task force and the attendees. So I'm inspired and want to just keep going with this.
Thank you, Doug. And I want to echo that I think the misconceptions about what this task force is and what it has the power to do are deep and wide. And I think they run on kind of all sides of the story here, because we are a task force really charged with making recommendations. And those have been very triggering from, straight out of the gate, the minute we sort of inserted ourselves, and I'm using that word intentionally, to try to understand a process. They've been really triggering, but I think ultimately have led to important conversations. But, I think what people don't fully appreciate is that we are here to also listen, Karen, to your point, to learn, and then turn that into recommendations that may or may not be adopted. I will say, I want just to say administratively, I heard from the strategic task force, which has been referenced many times in terms of a model that we should pursue for our final deliverable. And that was supported with a very sizable budget. And we're working with no budget. And so I think that that's something we need to consider as we are in these phases of, at these kind of what I'll call penultimate phases of this deliverable, where we're packaging and starting to put together our thoughts. So I'm just throwing that out there. Anyone else from the task force? We can come back to the task force members, but if there's nothing in the immediate, I will turn it over to Don Hyman. If you could unmute, please.
Good evening. I'll be very brief. My name's Don Hyman. I've lived in Fairfield for more than 40 years. I know Nancy through various political and other circles. I was appalled by the news accounts that I read, and I was also inspired by your collective behavior. My request to you is to keep doing what you're doing. It's very important. It must be very difficult, but I think we're all grown-ups on this call, and I think I know that you'll rise to the occasion. My background is in communications and journalism and public relations. I'm a retired journalist and public relations executive. If I can be helpful to you as a volunteer or kind of, on the sidelines going forward, I'm happy to do that. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll turn it next to Susan and then Emma.
Can we unmute Susan?
Here I am. Thank you. I'm Susan Stern, and I'm here with some members of the American Jewish Committee from Fairfield, Westchester. And I just wanted to let you know that when we heard about what happened, we immediately wrote a letter to your first selectman. We were totally appalled by what we heard. We've seen this in other communities as well, and wanted to let you know of our support for you and for the good work that you're doing and bringing people together and trying to find some solutions for your community. Would love to have an opportunity at a later point. I don't want to take time now, but to talk to you about some of the work that AJC has been doing with intergroup and interfaith coalitions and discussions about how to counter hate, which is one of our primary goals. So I thank you very much for letting us be here with you, and keep on keeping on. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, Susan. And it's really meaningful that you're here, and that support means a lot. And I hope it's helping with the task force members and the ad hoc members as a reminder that past the trauma of that experience is all this embrace. So thank you.
I'm sorry. Can I just mention that I have Sarah Jaffe is here from our committee, and our Vice President of AJC Westchester Fairfield, Mona Abramson, is also here. So thank you.
Thank you all for taking your time. Really appreciate it. Emma, and you're getting lots of thumbs up from the committee members if you can't see it. So, Emma?
Am I unmuted? Yes. Okay. I just wanted to say that from an outsider's point of view here, to close the meetings, it seems to me to be opposed to like what you guys are inherently trying to do, that you should be removing barriers to people being here and diverse ideas, and you should be encouraging. I think I'm probably repeating kind of what other people say, but in other words, I think it's like so core to your mission here to keep it open to the public. And I completely understand being nervous about your safety and all of that, but I think it's very important to keep it open to just to support what you're actually doing. I think you should have as many people here as possible. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Emma. Is there anyone else from the community at large that wants to comment? Emma, your hand is still raised, but you just spoke, unless you have a follow-up. Anyone back on the task force on this? And we've heard mostly on the side of keeping these meetings open. I would encourage, if you're feeling, certainly we don't want anybody to feel afraid. So, that's something that, if you're not comfortable talking about that here, and thank you, Tamisha, for sharing. I think my sense is that a majority of the voting body would be in favor of keeping those meetings open. And this is not a formal vote, but I'm sort of curious to get a sense of the body to make sure that everybody is heard. Should we take an informal vote, or do you think the consensus is pretty clear?
I think that if it's okay,
yeah.
I know that, the goal is to work with Dr. Morris in between then and now. And this is not like, we can't do that business in that meeting, but I think that's a really more appropriate place for like us to kind of unpack some of those feelings. And maybe we can like table that and vote on that the next time. Because I want to make sure that we're giving it, the consideration. I think we're all kind of have our opinions about it, but I want to make sure that we're like hearing each other really well too. So I'd love to do that after we meet with Dr. Morrison, which should be happening between now and the next time we meet.
Thank you.
I also want to
go
say thank you to the people who just participated, because that is pretty much why we're here, to hear what you have to say and to get an understanding. And I love hearing from people who've lived in Fairfield a long time. I think there are a lot of people who've been in Fairfield for a long time. And, when I think about some of the email we're getting, like what I read ultimately is there is a fundamental difference in definition. I think people don't really, we use the same words, but they may not mean the same to everyone. And I think I would prefer to have a dialogue about those, differencing in definitions than have somebody just name call. So, I will still leave that open. I think if somebody wants to have a dialogue about it and they don't want to do it in this forum, I'm willing to, if you wanted to contact me to talk to me personally about it, I'm happy to have that conversation. I love definitions and I love hearing what people think, because I don't want anybody to feel shut down, because that's not why we're here. This is not about what has come in a lot of like the things that I've been sent and read is that people have this misunderstanding that what we're doing is trying to elevate one voice over another. And we're trying to like shut down some people for the benefit of other people. And I think if you don't sort of understand what we're doing, it's easy to take that message and to just run with that message, that the idea is that there is one group that we're trying to put ahead of other groups, because that's kind of how it's been. There have been groups ahead of other groups, but that's not, I don't feel that is ultimately the goal. I've said this before, I say this again, I think the goal is that every single person should feel like they have the right to exist in our town in the bodies that they occupy. That's my goal. That's all of, I spoke to all of you, and I know that's all of your goal. And not one person on this call when we interviewed you said that what I want is for just my point of view to be the only point of view, and I want to put my people ahead. That's never been it. It's every single one of you said the same thing to us, which is you just want people to feel that things are fair. And so that's it. That's the whole story. It's not more complicated than that, but I think there are others who think that's different. And that's not really healthy if we're not all kind of using the same definitions, for sure. I did want to get back to the blueprint real quick.
I would say, I just want to say, because that, I think that is so well articulated, Gina, in terms of the work here. And it sounds really simple because I agree with everything you just said. I think that work, even sometimes just asking the questions or acknowledging that there is a group that feels less than somehow, or that there is discrimination against, that very idea is really triggering for people and super uncomfortable. And that's not the part we're dealing with. It's not about someone else's discomfort. It's about shining a light on where the discrimination is, not the person who's feeling bad that we're talking about the discrimination. And yet we have to find a way to meet in the middle so we can have those conversations, if that makes sense. I think that you just articulated it really well, which is why I wish we could have the opportunity to have an open discussion, and that when someone just kind of blasts into the ether a point of view and then doesn't create the space where we can have a conversation, it's really challenging. So again, I think it really highlights the importance of this sort of forum so that we can keep creating the space to have the back and forth for that time when someone is willing to do it, anyone. So, but I agree, and thank you for, we'll figure out again a space where we can have some of those conversations that you were talking about. So again, any other comments, members of the task force or members of the community at large? I think then we will just move on, again, being
Jamie's
oh,
hand.
Jamie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what's going on, that what the meeting is about in Weston tonight is just a good example of what we're working to change. A citizen of a town not feeling welcome in his own town. So sometimes the stories really do help kind of exemplify what we're working towards. So I thought,
Thank you.
I think what's going on there is the perfect example.
Can you share in the chat the link to that meeting? If someone has the link to the meeting, the Weston meeting, for those that want to join after this, because we'll be done in a few minutes, we'll cut this short.
I think what's interesting too that I wanted to just point out is when Chief Liddy created the policy that you had to have a second reason for calling the police on someone, he was working to have what happened in Weston not happen, because it was happening enough in Fairfield that they were getting enough calls on people just going about their business but looking the wrong way, but according to the caller, and having to go out and having to use police resources to stop a family at the beach because they were the wrong color, or someone running down the road because they were the wrong color. And Chief Liddy made it a policy that those stops, if you called, you had to have a second reason. So they wouldn't go out on a call like the one in Weston where the police came because somebody was standing on the road with their mail, which is a very innocuous thing to do when you don't look like me. And so that is one way where someone looked at something, people who would argue that there's, that it doesn't happen in Fairfield. Chief Liddy made that decision prior to us. That had nothing to do with this task force. That was something that he put in place on his own this summer as a response to the amount of calls that they were getting and looking at that as a waste of resources. That's the kind of work that this task force is about. It's about sometimes someone needs to step in and say, there are some changes we have to make because it's impacting some people in a negative way and they're not feeling welcome in their town. And I think, that was really interesting, to know that Weston is now coming together, and in one way, we're ahead. That our police wouldn't have gone out on that call, and our dispatcher would have stopped that call because that's a policy that they put in place. We really wanted to make sure that the new chief is going to keep that in place. So we want to make sure that, this task force is going to make sure that we keep that policy in place because it's valuable. And that's, I think, another good example of why we do what we're doing.
A next agenda item, which kind of leads into this, and it's real quick. And Andrew, I'm sorry, Annie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I do want to say something. This is Annie Cordingra. I mean, when we talk about the police coming over because you look different, I just want to share, it's going back about 16, 17 years. My father was with me for 3 weeks, and he would go out for a walk every day. And lo and behold, I had a police car come to my door. It was called, that somebody had called, and my father was, in his early 70s. He's, pretty well dressed and with his sneakers, and there was nothing. And this is walking on North Benson. So, when it has taken the chief that long, so that many phone calls have gone. So it's not that age, it's actually the color. At 70, if you can, a person who's well dressed taking a morning walk is called. So it's pretty disconcerting. So applaud to the chief that he did that, but it's taken that long.
And we don't want to go backwards. That was forward motion. We want to keep going forward.
Thank you, Annie. And I think it's a good segue to our next agenda item, as I start to say, which, and again, we'll be real brief here because I will be joining the Weston meeting as well. I met with Amy Guerrero after our Racial Equity and Justice Task Force meeting 2 times ago. And this is Nancy Lefkowitz speaking. She organized the Stop Asian Hate rally. I had a meeting with her, but based on the conversation with Rosalie, who heads the Pan-Asian student organization at one of the high schools, we talked about a listening project similar to StoryCorps. So I met with Amy and another, an older gentleman in town, and we talked about a listening project. It would be really a separate project from the task force, but the idea being that there are so many stories to share. Positive, negative, any what you describe. I mean, listening to the students at the Stop Asian Hate rally, getting those stories on, recording them, voice recording, writing them down. And we had a really robust conversation about that. And we thought a great way to get that project forward was, and Annie, again, really taken with the story that you led our meeting with last time about the shooting in Indiana and the Sikh community, the attack on the Sikh community and the lack of media coverage on that. It really struck a nerve. And so we thought that, where Amy and I had sat down again and talked and thought that if the Equity Coalition, the Equity Group through the high school, this may be a project that they want to take on, and some of our members here may be interested in participating. So again, it wouldn't be an official, I don't know who that person is in the waiting room. So I think at this point, since we're about to close, let's not let them in. Unless they can identify themselves, and if you can ask them. Sorry, sidebar. So that, again, if that's something that you're interested in, please contact me separately. It would not be an official project of the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force, but if you're interested in that story idea, Gina, go ahead.
I just had two emails that I wanted to share with you. One, I had an email from someone who is looking for the police stop data that you had, Steve. It's someone named Lucy Roche. She's a Fairfield resident and wanted to have it. So I wonder if you could send me that link again so I could share that with her.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks. And then the other thing is, like, weeks ago, I sent an email to the National League of Cities about their trainings, and I guess our name came up. So they finally sent me a summary of their scope of services, and it's pretty interesting. So I'm going to be forwarding that email to all of you. It just came in this afternoon about some of the services that they provide. Super interesting. And that they actually may be helpful in some way with what we're doing. So I'm going to send it out to you to take a look at, and we can talk about it next week.
I'm going to go.
All right, so we will go real quick here. The blueprint, as I said earlier, there is no update. And for those of you joining us, we're not normally this sort of quick at the end, but we did want to, Steve put the link to the Weston meeting in the chat. Anybody else have anything in closing to say? If you are still, I think Gina and Sandra, I think we're still, if I'm not mistaken, waiting to get some information from you.
I just sent a document to Ryan. I could only do it as a PDF, Ryan, but if you want me to retype, because I typed it in as a Google Doc, and so it won't let me.
Sandra, you know what? I think we can download a Google Doc into Word format.
Okay, because I tried to do that quickly because I didn't get your, do you like my Italianness quickly? Because I couldn't download it from a doc to PDF. I mean, Word.
Yeah.
All right. And I think just in terms of the blueprint, I do think we're going to have a discussion about how to execute on it, and talking about is that going to mean that we're going to ask for some money to try to do that? We should think about that and talk about that. But in the meantime, do I have a motion to adjourn? And again, or any last comment? Yeah.
I just want Sandra to share her Google Doc with me, and then I can, if you share the Google Doc with me, Sandra,
Okay.
I can.
Okay,
take
so
it from there.
all right, I can do that.
Yeah.
I'll do that right after the meeting.
All right. So is there any other comments, questions, concerns? And again, we're cutting it so short. It's not normally this quick at the end. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you, Sandra. And then is there a second? Gina, any, all in favor?
Real quick, Nancy, you can't get in the Weston meeting. It's at capacity.
Oh,
Nice.
okay.
I actually love that for them. God bless them. So
Yep.
cool.
Good. Okay. Well, we have the motion on the table. Is there anyone that wants comments or wants to talk further? Sorry that but it's great for them. Great. And if anyone
you
wants
should
to
be
reach
hearing
out.
from us in the next couple of days about our session with Dr. Morrison, hopefully very soon.
And Emma, if you have an update, maybe offline, we can talk about, the sustainable and getting some of that guidance from the group. I know that, okay, great. And thank you, Andrew. We're going to connect Fairfield Equity Coalition. So I appreciate that. Any last questions, comments? Oh, Doug, go ahead. And we have a motion on the table, so.
Yeah, so it's actually not related to that motion. So was that?
So let's vote against, just for technical sake here.
I'm going to withdraw. I'll wait. till
Okay.
next-
We can have a sidebar conversation. All right, all in favor?
We're good.
Okay.
We're doing, okay.
Okay. Now the meeting is formally not in session.
Meeting is
Anyone?
formally not in session. Are you going to stop the recording?
I am not going to stop the recording just because we're on here. But does anyone?
Well, I think-
non-agenda related. It can't be agenda related.
I just want to say thank you to tech support, because there is somebody in the waiting room that has a name that is not a name. And I'm grateful for the tech support help. And anyway, and that's all. Thank you, Nancy, for working with them to get that in there, and Gina for setting that up too, because I think, we might have more of this, people who come in, non-named people wanting to come in and see if they can do it again, and we will not let them win.
And for anyone, really, I'll just reiterate, I know, Gina, you've said it, and many of us have said it before. We're open to the conversation, and the only way we're going to move forward is if we have it. So I hope
With
people will
who
continue
share
to join us.
with people who are honest about who they are.
Well, thank you all. And if anyone is interested, task force in Trumbull and surrounding neighborhoods have reached out and have said that they're there for support. So just know that lots of people are paying attention and really appreciative. So with that,
I might
thank
keep
you all.
trying in that Weston meeting, even though
Yeah.
What's that?
maybe it'll open up.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all.
Guys, this is Tamisha. I don't know anything about this email that you guys brought up. I don't have an email. I don't know the
Yeah,
gist.
Tisha, you were on that email thread.
Yeah, it was originally sent to you, and then I sent it to everybody.
It originally went to 4 of us, oddly
Tisha
enough,
was one
and
of
then
them.
subsequently out to everybody. So I'm not
It
sure.
was
I was
Whaley trying to get in. That was John.
Oh,
Well, tell John Whaley to identify
John
himself.
Whaley.
Karen.
How could we deduce that from that
Karen.
nickname?
All
Karen,
right.
I'm
Well,
not
thank
sure-
you all.